But what does stress do? Well, now your endocrine system is pumping your adrenal glands and you're dumping cortisol and all of these things into your system that over time are deleterious to your organs. You're not sleeping well, you're not digesting properly, so you're not rejuvenating your system well. So when you understand how dis-ease, psychologically and emotionally, is the precursor to physical disease, then you get to reverse engineer that and you literally start to age backwards, right? Because you're like, oh, the real precursor to true health is peace. But I can't have peace because I live in a mind that is looking through a lens of perceived threats, my feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. So that's why it's a natural extension of the coaching, is because freeing people's minds, yes, that's amazing, awe-inspiring, life-changing as you've witnessed. But now let's take that and implement it into understanding how that is the precursor to having true vitality.
Yeah! What's up, everybody? Your life alchemist, your dragon. Welcome to Alchemized Life. I'm your host, Justin David Carl. This is a show where I seek out and share expertise, wisdom, and thought leadership in all domains with the mission of empowering and inspiring you to proactively design and truly live a life worth living. We're all in this together, and when we do the work together, we go so much farther, so much faster, and have so much more fun. Without further ado, let's dig into this episode and alchemize life. Peter Crone, the mind architect. Welcome to the show, brother. So good to have you.
It's great to be here, Dragon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so to give the audience a bit of an intro, you don't really need one, but for my audience who may be unfamiliar with your work, you're a thought leader in human potential and performance, and you're often said to be a mix of Buddha, Einstein, and Austin Powers, which I absolutely love because you're not just super serious and so stuck in the mind that you don't have any fun or levity in your interactions. And I was incredibly attracted to your work through a mutual friend of ours, Nimai. And, last year, he let me know that he was joining your mastermind at the beginning of 2022. And I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because I wanted to do something in 2022 that would empower me to grow and not be in the same place I was a year from then. And I did not realize at the time that the mastermind, like, I paid in full, signed up, was super excited. And then later, a few weeks later, I realized it was the coaching edition. And I was like, I don't want to be a coach. What am I doing here? So that's actually how I started the coaching program. But before we kind of go into what that mastermind is about, I want to talk about freedom, because in my own experience, there has been different levels of achieving freedom. Firstly, I would say with my own personal fitness. Secondly, then kind of achieving a certain level of financial freedom. But then at times, I find myself kind of locking myself up inadvertently. And I'm just curious, why do we lock ourselves up? Like, why do we remove our own freedom, or why do we think we're not free?
Okay. Well, you shared a lot and you said a lot. So I just want to speak to the different tenets of your commentary. The triumvirate of Einstein, Buddha, and Austin Powers, I think, is apropos. And I for sure can confidently say I'm one of the happiest, most playful people on the planet, albeit, I'm obviously renowned for my prowess as it relates to the mind and freeing people from the constraints, particularly of their subconscious. So that's one part of your commentary. As it relates to freedom, a lot of people who are listening to this may not really look at their lives from the context of freedom, whether it be they don't feel free or they don't even talk about it. They might think, well, what's he talking about? I'm free. I do whatever I want. And it's not until people realize that they are inherently not free meaning in terms of their human experience, I would say innately they're free, like from the perspective of their soul, their being. But if they look at any aspect of their life, their health, their relationships, their wealth, their psychology, they'll notice very quickly that they're not free. They're not fully self-expressed in their relationships, meaning perhaps they feel the need to have white lies or perhaps even heavier lies. Maybe there's infidelity, where there's the absence of real intimacy, connection, transparency. So there's not freedom there. You're not telling the truth. Maybe people don't feel they have freedom with their finances. Like they're not organized. They don't have enough finances. They can't do what they want to do because they can't afford it. There's an absence of freedom there. They may not have freedom with their body because they feel stiff. They feel old. They feel sick. They've got a disease, right? So you start to see that most people's lives are actually replete with the absence of freedom, which is why I love to bring freedom in all areas of life. So to answer the last part of your commentary, the question of why do we do that, it's part of the intrinsic design of what I call just the ego, the identity or persona, which is who you think you are, and not just you, but anyone listening, is founded in this accumulation of conditioned narratives that we accumulate over time, predominantly triggered through our childhood. So a very simple example is when people don't feel they're enough. So what happens is that freedom becomes compromised because if you're not enough, then now you have to create adaptations, right? There's survival mechanisms on top of not enoughness, most of which people are familiar with, like people pleasing, perfectionism, always seeking some sort of external validation. So immediately that people hear those words, they will recognize there's no freedom there, right? Like if you're constantly trying to garner respect from your peers or work, from your loved ones, whatever it is, by trying to show off or prove yourself because at a deeper level you think you're not enough, there's no freedom there. That's an exhausting way to live, right? That can actually manifest physiologically with people's adrenals being shot and all the rest of it. So then why would we do that? To answer your question, why would we block ourselves or why would we inhibit that really deep, innate freedom? Well, because one of the predominant imperatives of the ego is to be right about itself. So that's what people might call a self-sabotage, where even though it's in the face of your deeper intentions, desires, or wants, you will sabotage a circumstance, whether it be a career, your health, a relationship, such that your current identity can have validation about its own inadequacy. So that's why people do it.
So, follow-up question on there, based in my own life. So I'm financially free. I'm arguably in pretty good shape, but recently there's been like a huge challenge in my family. To get specific, because, my family's not going to care if I talk about it on my podcast. My mom accidentally rented out her place to she didn't know at the time, but some drug addicts. And, they were doing like meth in her home, and it was like causing her massive amounts of stress and fear and anxiety. And as somebody who loves his mother deeply, I couldn't help, like I almost could not help but feel it. And to the point where it like almost affected my physical well-being, and I could literally feel her stress. And over the last few weeks, like I just have not felt free. I've literally felt like this huge like energetic drain, and I've been like looking for kind of like the spiritual lessons and opportunities for growth within this. But what I have found very challenging is maintaining a sense of peace, like amidst the chaos of what's going on with a loved one.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think, because you've done the mastermind and I didn't really address that, but I'm happy that you went through it, even if it seemed to be accidental because you didn't really know what you were getting in. But my guess is you got a lot from it. And shout out to Nimai, who introduced you to my work or the mastermind. So in your languaging, you talked about, okay, your mom inadvertently didn't know she rented out a home, And then in your languaging, you said, and it caused anxiety, stress, and fear, right? Which to the layperson makes sense. It's like, oh, you've got something going on around you that is not what you wanted or intended, or it's worst case scenario, but it didn't cause any of that in your mom, right? So This is where people collapse circumstance with experience. The only thing that caused your mom's stress, anxiety, and fear is her own brain, right? Having meth addicts, drug dealers, whatever's going on in her home is not the cause of her stress. Now, is it in an ideal scenario? Is it what she wants? No, of course, I understand. But if you're going to your question, find peace and freedom, you have to realize they are only available when you're fully responsible for your own experience. Because otherwise people are like, oh yeah, well, if I had more money or if I was in great shape, then I'd be free, I'd be happy. Or, if my wife didn't nag at me, or if my children were well behaved, then I'd be free. Then what you're saying is you're a victim of circumstance, and until circumstances are perfect, you're not going to be okay. That's an absolutely futile way to live life. But of course, how most people live life, and that's why people are control freaks, as another term. People are trying to control everything, which makes sense ipso facto. If you think that you are, the experience you have is a byproduct of your circumstance, then it's kind of logical that you would try to control circumstance because you want to feel good. But that's such a powerless way to live life. There's circumstances which you may not want or may not be ideal. I get it. It's your mom's home and she's whatever concerned about the property or the image, or I don't know what her concerns are, but they're her concerns, and her concerns are creating her stress. So the first way for her to find some peace, or you to find some peace, is to recognize she's totally fine. She's just creating this shitstorm of emotions of her own accord, albeit it's unconscious, for which reason there's compassion. She's not doing it intentionally, but her brain is literally creating a scenario, in this case, usually worst case outcomes of what's going to happen or blah, blah, blah. Whatever she's doing, which is from her subconscious deeper patterns of feeling like she has to survive, which is instinctual for humans, feeling like she's alone and separate, feeling like she's powerless, feeling like it's hopeless, feeling like she's been cheated. All of these victim narratives are what's creating her stress, but they're all her narratives. So there's so many different ways that you can reframe things. Maybe from this, there's a reframe of, oh, wow, perhaps she wasn't doing her due diligence properly with regards to who she rented it to. Maybe she didn't understand exactly what the lease the proposal or the contract entailed, or, so there's an opportunity always to level your responsibility and your presence with the choices you make. And what I also hear is that there's an opportunity for you and her to develop more trust in the fact that she's going to be okay. We'll figure it out. There's laws for this, right? The lease contract probably does have something in it, maybe not specific, that you can't do crack in my house, or something along those lines, right? So there's a breach of contract. Now, is that an inconvenience? Yeah, but so is freaking washing dishes in my kitchen, but I get on with it, right? You know what I mean? So there's life, and then there's our reaction to life. So you're in a sort of byproduct reaction. Your mom's having a reaction to life, which is her own creation. And then you are having your own reaction to your mom.
Yeah.
None of which is wrong. It's all human. I mean, listen, you're not supposed to walk around like a robot. But if you're going to be powerful, you've got to realize I am the source, SOURCE, of my own experience. And then there's just life to deal with, which for the most part, certainly after the last 3 years, hasn't been ideal for anyone. So, it's as the Navy SEALs say, deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And that can come across as a little harsh, but it's also a tough love. It's appealing to the fact that you're an extraordinary human being and you're able to handle it.
Yeah. So this all just went down. So just for context, my mom lives in the home of the room that she was renting. So it was extra close for her. And what I've identified in myself related to this particular experience is, my mom was a single mom, and she had to go through a lot of stressful things in order to raise 3 crazy boys. And so my kind of coping mechanism when I was younger, when my mom was experiencing stress, was to either go shut myself in my room and play video games or read books, or leave the house and go play in the forest. But that does not work well in my marriage or with my, relationship with my mom now. Now she wants, not necessarily for me to solve her problem, and we'll get to solving versus dissolving a little later, but to like be in contact and communication with her so she feels like she's supported. But I found myself being constantly triggered over the last month that like my mom was so stressed out. I just wanted to do my old kind of, protection method, which was like disconnect and distance myself. And so I've been consciously aware of that and putting myself into regular communication and with my mom, but those emotions of like stress and fear and anxiety keep coming up. And so what I'm trying to understand is that just like something I have to go through to kind of emote that, or is there a way to break the paradigm and be at peace and in connection with my mom while she's going through this?
Well, at the end of the day, you have to choose what's right for you. But what I hear in terms of the subconscious conditioning that is confining both of you is the fact that you feel powerless. So the little boy, when his mum is stressed and worried and freaking out, as a single mum with 3 sons, you did was withdraw. Withdrawal is a coping mechanism where you don't feel that you have any stake. You don't have any say. You're feeling powerless. So that's what I hear now for both of you. And it makes sense that you've adopted that because we tend to, through osmosis, like take on the similar qualities of our parents, right? So if your mom is feeling powerless, well, then it's no surprise that, just like you speak English because your mom spoke English to you. If she was Latino, she would speak Spanish and then you would learn Spanish, right? So emotionally, we do the same thing. So you've learned this quality of powerlessness and you're experiencing right now. As a little boy, you truly were powerless. Like, what are you going to do? You're 6, you're 5, you don't know how to handle this situation. So you go into a retreat mode, which is just the way that you deal with it. Now, that mechanism is still obviously part of your nervous system and your identity. And so there's the tendency, this is these addictive qualities that we have based on trauma. Your tendency is to go back into that same survival pattern. It's not wrong, but it doesn't behoove you and it doesn't help your mom. Your mom right now is just scared, right? So humans predominantly have 2 states, like they're hurt or they're scared. And she's experiencing both of them. And so right now, she's looking for support, as you said, especially from her son, and especially sees you now as a man. And so the opportunity, as I said, when you reframe this whole thing, is that you're both evolving through this. So it might take a month, a week, or a year, I don't know, but at some point you'll look back on this event and go, oh, wow, this was such an up-leveling in who we were. Dragon got to show up and be a man and support his mom, and his mom got to grow up and be a woman and deal with the circumstances of her own choices. Right? That's called evolution. That's becoming a more powerful, responsible human being. Most people just shun that, though. They want to point fingers, blame, and just be a victim. So clearly your souls have orchestrated this event because both of you are wanting to evolve. That's great. Now, as part of evolution, it's normally not that pleasant. If you want to get strong, you have to lift heavy shit, right? It's uncomfortable. So the same emotionally. Like if everything's just going to be ho-hum and like, this sort of Stepford wife, everything is picture perfect and you're not dealing with anything, then where's the growth? So I get that it's not ideal. I certainly have compassion for the fact she's living in the house, and for a woman that can be scary, especially given the circumstances of what are transpiring. But there's also choices, right? Does that mean she comes and stays with you for a week or 2? Does that mean she stays with a friend? Is that ideal? No. She's like, oh, but I have all my stuff here, or whatever the justifications are. It's all choices. We're always making choices. The question is, to what degree do you want to be responsible for the choices you're making? That's where the power comes. I made choices to buy whatever stock many years ago, and I put X amount of dollars in, and then the company didn't do well, and the X amount of dollars I had disappeared, right? Like, I could get pissed off about it. I could blame people. I could call the CEO. I could talk to a financial friend who made the suggestion, none of which makes my money appear. That's just all crybaby. And that's how most people live their lives, which I get. I have compassion. But if you want to be powerful, you got to grow up.
Hey there. Just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. Today's show is brought to you by Veg Nutrition. Live better. So I'm actually a Veg elite athlete. And before I joined the team, I spent months doing my due diligence to make sure that the company was vision, mission, and value aligned with me, my values, my mission, my vision, and my lifestyle. I got to know the owners super well. I even got to know the person who formulates all the products, and they passed with flying colors. So I couldn't be more excited to represent a company that I feel so aligned with. And I want to tell you about two of my favorite products. The first is the veg pre workout. So when I first went vegan, or mostly vegan, the last thing for me to go fully vegan was finding a vegan pre workout that gave me the focus, the energy, and the power that I was looking for. And I can tell you, this is the best pre workout that I've ever had. It gives me incredible focus and energy. And what's probably the best is it leaves me with no crash after I take it, which is great. And the flavors are so freaking good. There's literally peach mango and a Patriot Pop that tastes like, the firecracker popsicles, cherry lemon lime flavor. They're literally so good that I can dry scoop them. And they just released a watermelon flavor for just in time for summer, and it's incredible. So that's the first product. The second product is arguably also my favorite, and that's the plant protein. Comes in 3 incredible flavors: chocolate peanut butter, vanilla ice cream, and cold brew coffee. Yep, you heard me. Cold brew coffee flavor. It tastes incredible, all 3 flavors, 25 grams of protein, fully organic, incredible ingredients, heavy metal tested, and it is my go-to post-workout. Make sure that I'm recovering and refueling and giving my muscles the protein that they need to rebuild for that next workout. So go to vegnutrition.com/dragon and try their full line of supplements, and you'll get 15% off. Or you can just use Dragon at checkout and you'll get 15% off. So that's vegnutrition.com/dragon to get 15% off. Veg Nutrition, live better. So I love to push my body and lift heavy shit. And it's something like where I've almost learned to love, the struggle or the pain of, pushing my body to grow. And that is a practice I developed over, many, many years, over a lifetime, to be honest. And in this circumstance, is this an opportunity for me to develop that kind of same kind of anticipation of the growth opportunity, and to recontextualize this as this is an incredible circumstance that is going to evolve me into becoming a great family man and transcending or evolving out of some of the patterns or protection mechanisms that would not serve me in my marriage or my life now.
Well, it would certainly be a more empowering view, wouldn't it? Versus going to the room and playing video games. I mean, you tell me you're not an idiot, right?
Yeah.
You love to push weight. You love the discomfort of resistance training. This is the same. It's resistance training for your psyche, right?
Yeah.
Developing intestinal fortitude, not a six-pack, but the energetics of having a strong gut, right? Which is that I can deal with whatever life throws. Doesn't mean you want it. I mean, Peter Crone gets all sorts of things he potentially doesn't want in his life, but I deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really simple. I'm not saying it's simple to deal with it, but the understanding, the distinction is simple.
Yeah.
Right? Right now, your mom is living in a house. The house has got a room that she rented out to someone who's doing drugs, right? That's it. That's what's happening. There's no stress there. There's no emotional, sort of compromise there. That's all in her interpretation. The fear of, what could happen? Is he going to stab me in the middle of the night? Is he going to steal things from me? Is he going to burn down the house, or she, or whoever it is, right? That's all narrative about things that haven't happened yet. Is there an increased likelihood of that happening because it's a drug addict versus, a stable member of society who's got sort of emotional stability? Yeah, it's maybe more likely, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
People are constantly worried about a future that hasn't actually transpired yet. And then they wonder why they're struggling with anxiety. Now, of course, we want to put ourselves in circumstances that lend themselves to better outcomes. And right now, it's like, oh, okay, well, your mom had a whoopsie daisy. It's like you got meth addicts in your house. Okay, great. So now what? A friend of mine, her kids were throwing up all over the bathroom the other night. Like, not what she wanted. She loves her house. She's very clean. And she certainly doesn't want her child to be ill. But guess what she did? She just had to attend to her daughter and then clean up the bathroom and just handle it.
Yeah. And what I've realized, through the mastermind and following your work is this is really an area where I'm not free. I am in relation to my mom. If my mom is stressed out or unhappy, I lock myself up. And so essentially I'm I'm working diligently to almost like inoculate myself and transcend, this pattern that honestly I believe I inherited from my father, because my father, when things went awry, he would just disconnect and disappear. That was like, and I am of the firm belief that our souls choose our parents in order to do the work that we're meant to do in this lifetime. And I think I got comfortable in the sense that, oh yeah, like everything's going really well in life. I finished this Peter Crone mastermind, and because this happened after the mastermind, this just happened. And then this, circumstance presented itself, and I was just like, the last month has been like hell. And to the point where like I'm, physical fatigue and just massive loss of power. And I know like as I step away and look at it from a more empowering view, that this is evolving me, but it like doesn't make it any easier. And I feel like I'm still trying to figure out like, how do I be with this and not take it so personal?
Yeah.
And
listen, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to recognize the dynamics that exist in place both for you and your mom, by courtesy of the fact that she was this role model for you, the single mom, the matriarch of the family, raising 3 boys. So the psychology of that relationship is the dependency that you had on your predominant source of survival. Right? Do you understand that connection? So you, the little boy in you, who had this mother who tended to your every need as best as she could with other, 2 brothers, was, providing a roof over your head, bringing food, bringing a sense of security, bringing love and like the cuddling that you need as a boy, right? And so what happens to your nervous system is you see your mother in a threatening situation, which is how it's all being perceived, right? She's hopefully going to be totally fine. It's an inconvenience, I get it. But the way that your brain is interpreting it, as well as hers, is that the source of your security is under threat. Now, even though you're a grown man and you have financial freedom, you have a wife, so there's a combination of both the inner child or the little boy in you who sees the potential threat to the person who is arguably one of the most important people in your life. So it's twofold, which is one, your survival is being compromised potentially, and secondly, you love her, so you don't want her to go through this, right? But in both cases, it's denying the fact that you're both powerful and that you've curated the events to transpire, for what I hear, is so that you can both evolve.
Yeah.
And I actually break the bond that is the mother-son, right? So you happen to share your mom's name?
Lori,
right. So there's a human being called Lori. So maybe Justin can start relating to Lori versus being little boy relating to mother, right? That's a different dynamic. So then you don't see it as your mum being threatened, your mum providing the source of security for you, which is a threat to your existence, nor is it your mum who you love and adore and you want to protect as best you can as a little boy because your father's not present. So, you've taken on all of these archetypes of right now being threatened. But from my perspective, being threatened in a healthy way, because it will allow you to have a much more intimate relationship with Lori as a human versus you being a little boy and her being your mom.
Yeah.
And that's why your tendency was to pull away, because that's what you did as a little boy. But now you're actually forging beyond the constraints of your own psyche and becoming the man, which is that you deal with it because you're a man.
Yeah.
And she equally, there's going to be remnants and this sort of residual self-image of her little girl who's scared and is feeling powerless on whatever happened with her childhood and her marriage. And now she's getting to look at that and go, okay, this is an ideal, but I'm going to deal with it as a grown woman. And you might need help, right? Whether it be attorneys, law, police, I don't know what you need, but you handle it. Mm-hmm. So that to me is the opportunity here for both of you, is to basically become the more mature versions of your adult self.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. Today's show is brought to you by Fit Rich Vegan. If you're ready to get in the best shape of your life, double your income, and 10x your savings and investments, then this is the coaching program for you. But wait a minute, Dragon. Isn't this your coaching program? Heck yeah, it is. I spent the last 8 years mastering my fitness and my finances, and I've built an incredible coaching program with an incredible team to help you get the body of your dreams and finally achieve that level of financial success that you've been seeking. So if you want to find out if you're a good fit for the program, go to fitrichvegan.com and book your free consultation today. Or you can just DM me on Instagram with the words fitrichvegan, and we can chat about if it's going to be a good fit for you. I'm committed to empowering people to actually achieve their fitness and financial goals. I spent the last 20 years trying to figure this out on my own. And what I realized is the key to doing it is not doing it alone. You have to have coaches, you have to have mentors, and you have to be a part of masterminds. And that's exactly what Fit Rich Vegan has. It has coaches, mentors, and it is a mastermind. So again, if you're ready to book your free consultation today, go to fitrichvegan.com or drop me a DM on Instagram. And is this a process where we kind of just got to be okay with the fact that life will keep presenting these in different iterations and evolutions? And it's like, okay, cool. I've evolved this part. I feel like I have this incredible new relationship with my mom. We're all better at real estate together. We're closer. And then some other thing's going to come in and it's going to show me where I'm not free. And then I get to go through it again.
Yep. Welcome to the pain in the ass. That's cool being human. Yeah.
And so
it's the mountain without a top is the analogy I use.
Yeah. And I really get that. But what I'm trying to develop myself is, how do I stay in practice, right? So like I completed your mastermind, it's been about 8 months, 7-8 months. And I was like really empowered and whatever. And then this thing came in again. I almost like forgot like the work of Peter Crone and how to free myself. And then, fortunately, I had this, long time dream of having you on the podcast ever since I came upon your work. And so this has like forced me to restudy your work. And I'm like, oh God, like, how did you forget already? And that's one of the things that I think that I'd like to point out for the audience is just like, you can't go work out at the gym once and be like jacked for the rest of the year. You can't eat one good. I wish, right? We all wish. And so, with these more kind of emotional, spiritual, familial things, like we got to stay in shape if we're going to, meet these opportunities in an empowered state. Otherwise, we're going to be like, oh God, I'm so out of shape and like I can barely deal with this.
Yeah.
And
100%. I mean, look, you're a smart dude, and so you're going to simulate the information that I download. And as you know from being in the mastermind, I download a lot. There's a lot of content. You witness me working with people, coaching people. It's moving, it's inspiring. There's tears, there's laughter. There's a lot that goes on. And yet we had 7 modules or 7 sessions over the course of 6 months. And, so even though that's a lot of hours, probably accumulated about 4 hours each time. So, you're looking at maybe 25 plus hours of content But that pales in comparison to the 3 or 4 decades that you've been alive.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it's not rocket science. It's profound. The distinctions I teach people are life-changing. The epiphanies that people have are incredibly inspiring and moving, and extraordinary results that people get. But if you don't keep that narrative as part of your day-to-day, then you're going to get sucked into the narrative of society, which sucks. I mean, look at the world today. We've got tyrants in our administration. We've got shitty people who lie in office. We've got media that tell whatever stories they're being paid to tell. We're surrounded by pretense and lies and a very disempowering commentary about what it means to be human, and all the fear and look out for deadly bugs and God knows what, and put poison in your body. And it takes a lot to withstand the barrage of bullshit that is out there to stay sovereign and to stay free and to stay powerful. So even as someone as committed to the work and as smart as you are, you're going to get bamboozled and drift into the general collective conversation, which is very disempowering.
Yeah.
That's why I set up, as I told you, my freedom community, so that people have an ongoing dialogue with me, right? The mastermind is one thing. It's super intense. There's a lot of content, and it's not the cheapest course because it's so valuable in terms of what I'm sharing. But that's why I set up this freedom community, the subscription model, where it's super affordable. You get to interact with like-minded people. There's exclusive content every week from me. There's a live Ask Me Anything every month, and it keeps that alive. It's like, oh, I'm staying in the mental, emotional, spiritual gym, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Love that. The mastermind was so powerful for me because it's such an experiential thing. And even though there was like 300, 400, 500 people in this mastermind, each time you worked with an individual person, there'd be moments where I literally was like, oh my God, like this is so relatable to me. And this is something that I try to share with people. There is a significant difference between reading a book and learning and having experiential learning. Like, for example, and just to kind of share a couple things from my own experience to illuminate it for the audience, like I went into this mastermind without a coaching program, not even realizing I had signed up for the coaching edition of Peter Crone's mastermind. And 5 years prior, I had tried to launch my own online fitness coaching program, never got it off the ground. And it was one of the most painful things for me. Like I cried. I was so ashamed that I didn't get it off the ground. And I was just like, I guess that dream's not for me. And I just kind of like thought it was buried. And then I sign up for the mastermind, and then we start doing the work, and randomly a mutual friend of me and Nimai's, we are in conversation, and I say, yeah, I've always had this dream to do a fitness and money coaching program. And he says, oh yeah, we should talk. And so through this mastermind, we start building the formulation of a coaching program. And this is all like happening naturally. I wasn't pushing for it. I wasn't looking for it. I literally had thought this dream had died. And then lo and behold, the Peter Crone mastermind, like the program launched in July, like right at the same time the mastermind was finishing up. And it was just incredibly beautiful. Like I had signed up for it with zero intention to start a coaching program and just an intention to evolve myself, to have the support of some sort of experiential mastermind that would foster growth in my life. And that was like crazy for me. And there was 2 other wild things that happened out of that mastermind for me that I just have to share, both with the audience and just to thank you, Peter, is this podcast. So I didn't have this podcast when I started the program. And that was one of the reasons I signed up for the mastermind, because I realized like I'd been dreaming of a podcast for 8 years and I was the only thing holding me back. And so at the beginning of that year, I said, what am I going to do different this year so I'm not in the same place being like, oh, I still want to start a podcast. And through this like experience, I unlocked myself, got the support that I needed, and launched a podcast. And then I think it's in the very first module, you did this thing where you had us do an inventory of our life, one of them being our living situation. And I remember like writing out what my current living situation was. And it just like, it wasn't a home I was proud of. And then like the mastermind, go through the mastermind. And then after the completion of the mastermind, we kind of like find this like dream home in a dream area that we want to live into. And now like I'm speaking to you from that home and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like Peter Crone's mastermind's some powerful fucking shit.
Yeah.
So
amazing, dude. I appreciate the reflection and I'm just so happy for you. And hopefully your audience gets inspired by that and what's possible for them. Because truly it's, even though I'm the one delivering and I'm channeling the insights and the distinctions, and I've obviously done this work for decades, it's not lost on me the beauty in the transformations that occur in people's lives just like that, right? That's significant for you, right? Even things that you didn't know that you wanted to do in terms of coaching or meeting that person seemingly randomly that, you mentioned, oh, I was thinking about coaching, fitness and money. Those to me are not random, right?
Yeah.
That is absolutely the realm of quantum physics and possibility at work. Meaning when you ascend, you shift to a different vibration, then you literally become a receiver, no different than a radio, that will allow things that previously couldn't access you or vice versa because you were at a different frequency. And so that's the beauty of the work, is that there is literally, now hundreds of people. Now we're on our third mastermind already, so we're over 1,000 people who've gone through this, where the stories are just so inspiring, and the awe that people are experiencing in the way that their life is unfolding in ways that they could never have calculated, because the person who they were when they entered the mastermind is not the person they are when they leave. And as a result, because you're a different person, you have to think differently, feel differently. Consequently, you have different behaviors and you have different outcomes. It's really physics. But most people stay who they are, but they want a different life. And it doesn't work that way. So just super pumped for you. I love hearing that story. And yeah, as I said, the shit works.
So tell me more about the health mastermind, because that's especially, present for me right now. I just turned 40, and, as I mentioned, as I was kind of dealing with the stress of what's going on with my mother, like I just have felt like unwell, physically unwell. And I'm just curious, like, what are some of the things that you teach within that mastermind, and who would it be for?
I mean, it's incredible. The reason that I started it was because I recognized, as cliche as it is to say, the most sort of valuable asset that we have as a human being is our well-being, our health. Health is wealth is there as an expression for a reason. And what I realized is when you look out at the world, most people are absolutely clueless as to what it means to be healthy. There are images, right? Like you see a guy or a girl with six packs and they're in their board shorts or their bikinis and they're on the cover of Men's Health. That is not health. That's aesthetics, right? And I'm not saying that doesn't have its appeal and it can get you a mate or it makes you look great down at the beach or the gym or whatever the fuck you're doing. But it's not health, right? Health to me runs the gamut of spiritual, mental, emotional, physiological, relational, like having health in all arenas. So I wanted to expand and help people understand what it means to be really healthy. So the mastermind is different but similar to the one you did, coaching. Obviously there I'm talking more about the distinctions of language and how you can help people, not just for coaches, but it might be a CEO or a C-suite executive. It might be a parent who wants to be able to have a better line of communication with their children. It might be just a friend who wants to help their buddies. It's just to understand the human psyche and how you can have an impact, right? But the health one takes that and sort of 10x's it in terms of understanding the physics of, like, from my background of Ayurveda, like the elements of who we are, like fire, water, air, etc., etc. So I'm equally teaching some of the profound 6,000-year-old science of Ayurveda, so people can go, oh shit, no wonder I have constipation. Oh shit, no wonder I got Crohn's. Or, oh, this is why I struggle with skin issues. Or this is why I have an inflammatory emotional response to most things. or this is why I tend to have depression or addiction. Because all of those things are very explainable when you combine my understanding of these constraints of the subconscious with the energy of our physiology and the elements and how they influence our thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So the health is kind of similar but different to coaching in terms of it's inspirational, it's eye-opening, it's mind-blowing. Already, like we're already halfway through, we've done 3 modules, but it's really awe-inspiring. Like, the people who are sharing, and not always from the position of a sickness or a problem, but that's obviously a few people, and then it's gone. They don't have a problem anymore because I help them understand why they generated that through no fault of their own. So there's no guilt or shame. But when you understand that the cascade of the dis-ease, right, emotionally and psychologically, the absence of ease, to go back to you and Laurie and your mom, the idea of you don't have peace. Well, if you don't have peace, we can call that stress. But what does stress do? Well, now your endocrine system is pumping your adrenal glands and you're dumping cortisol and all of these things into your system that over time are deleterious to your organs. You're not sleeping well, you're not digesting properly, so you're not rejuvenating your system well. So when you understand how dis-ease, psychologically and emotionally, is the precursor to physical disease, then you get to reverse engineer that and you literally start to age backwards, right? Because you're like, oh, the real precursor to true health is peace. But I can't have peace because I live in a mind that is looking through a lens of perceived threats, my feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. So that's why it's a natural extension of the coaching, is because freeing people's minds, yes, that's amazing, awe-inspiring, life-changing as you've witnessed. But now let's take that and implement it into understanding how that is the precursor to having true vitality.
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience with Ayurveda. Like, I know I'm a Pitta, and I've visited with a Ayurvedic, doctor, and had my doshas read and whatnot. And he was amazed that I had no ama at the time, which was great. But I myself, as a Pitta, speaking to kind of my own challenges, like I've had, like in my late 30s, started getting eczema and like having like heat challenges. And then I noticed myself, like, I will want to eat not super spicy food, but spicier food, which just aggravates the heat in my
100%.
body.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what am I doing? I know, like, this is not good for me, but I'm like craving it. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. So like, I think I'm probably going to have, if you do the health mastermind again, I'm going to have to join, because I think it's a sign that I need to deepen my knowledge of Ayurveda.
Yeah, it goes way beyond that. Like, that's a component of it, right? But like, to understand the mechanisms of why you as a Pitta, which for people who don't know what the hell that is, predominantly a fire type, the different doshas tend to be attracted to that which creates imbalance, which you think doesn't make any sense, right? So fire people love to have a few cocktails, they love to work hard, they love spicy food, all of which exacerbates the heat. Just like an air person who has dry, cold, and sort of light issues, they tend to be drawn to things that exacerbate that. So they love their salads and their crackers and their chips and their coffee and their restlessness, like all of which exacerbates their butter, right? So it's kind of comical when you realize that we, as in pretty much every arena of life, tend to be our own worst enemy. So I'm just undoing all of that and helping people discover, again, we start with freedom, but then freedom gives you a greater sense of possibility and space, and that's where you can start to relax. Then your body can start to heal. So it really is this beautiful cascade into natural radiance and vitality.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. This show is brought to you by Feel Free from Botanic Tonics. This product is unlike anything I've ever had before. No joke. It's made with kava root and other ancient plants, and just half a shot gives me this incredible sense of focused flow and productivity. And I love to take just half a shot right before I work out. I take it with my pre-workout, and it takes my workouts to the next level. It is seriously unlike anything I've ever had. It's also an incredible productivity tool for any big work projects that you have or long periods of time where you just need to be super focused in flow state and get a lot of shit done. So if you want to give this a shot, you can go to botanictonics.com and use code DRAGON at checkout to get 40% off your first order. No joke, 40% off with code DRAGON. That's feel free from botanictonics.com, code DRAGON. Feel free, feel good.
Well, Peter, I deeply appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you for playing such a beautiful part in my own journey and my own kind of genesis into really becoming the man that I want to be in this world. I will, continue to follow your work and probably join the next health mastermind. Any last topics or ideas or words of wisdom or even requests to the audience that you'd like to make?
No, I mean, firstly, thank you for your kind words. Again, I obviously get to see, thousands of people in my masterminds, millions around the world who have seen my work, and it's always nice. It means a lot to me to have a little bit more of an intimate reaction, from somebody like you sharing what you've really been through. Like, it just touches me and it inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing to help people, because we live in very strange times. The world has become very divisive, and we could say intentionally so. There's a lot of unrest out there, and I think we really have a crisis of emotional wellness, and people are struggling. Suicide rates are spiking, and obviously people are getting really sick. And so it's just nice to hear from one person. Again, I get a lot of feedback from people in the mastermind, but it's moving to know the difference that me saying a few words on a Zoom call, once a month over the course of 6 months has had such a profound impact. And so I'll keep doing it. So for people out there who, might be struggling, look up to the Justins of the world and see that it's possible, and don't have to do my mastermind, but seek something that inspires you. Find some inspiration that is moving, that shows you what's possible. Find a community where you feel loved and supported and safe. And again, if you're interested, you can check out the Freedom Community. We made it very affordable for people, and there's just a ton of content that gets thrown in there. I'm active, and then there's just incredible human beings, like-minded souls who are wanting to live extraordinary lives and find freedom in every arena of their life. So thank you for the feedback. I'm glad that you're a part of it, and maybe we'll see you in a future one.
Yeah, absolutely. This was such a great reminder that I just got to keep staying committed to doing the work and keeping that work present in my life. Otherwise, I'm just going to, once again, become my own worst enemy and lock myself up. So
yeah, and even there, subtle language, you don't have to, you choose to, right? It's an empowering way to look at it. Like, again, if you're committed to living an extraordinary life, just as you are, obviously, with regards to your fitness, do you feel like getting to the gym at 7 o'clock in the morning every day? No, you're probably tired, sore, you want to cuddle with your wife or whatever it is that you have as a perceived preference. Because of your discipline and your commitment, you go, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, for me, doing this, having the Freedom Community, doing masterminds, interacting with people like yourself, I'm sort of one of the greatest beneficiaries of my own work, because I get to interact with people all the time. People are like, who the hell do you talk to? I'm like, well, you guys. I have this, even yesterday we did a live. It's part of the subscription is every month people get to, pose questions. And the live was just so inspiring with the questions and the vulnerability that people have. And so for me, I choose to be there because it just enhances my life in every regard, so make it a choice. To me,
I get to continue to do the work. I'm fortunate and lucky to continue to do the work.
Yeah, that was one of the distinctions we went through in the mastermind, right?
And it's so easy to fall back into the old stuff. So yeah, I love that you stay in connection to your own work through doing the work with other people. So
and to let people understand the why, which is we live in a society that doesn't pull for the extraordinary, right? Which might be a strange way of saying it, but what I mean is the communities that we have in terms of our life, our nation, our country, our globe, isn't like the most inspiring, authentic, encouraging, safe environment, right? If it were, then we wouldn't need masterminds and freedom communities, because you could go to the grocery store and feel empowered. You could walk down a street at 2:00 in the morning and have someone come up to you and hold your hand and say, hey, let me walk you home. No, most people are shit scared to do things that outside of the confines of their own home, because the world's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And so it's because of the nature of the world we currently live in that through osmosis, as I said, we tend to get pulled back into the cynicism, the resignation, the hopelessness, the powerlessness, because we're being fed all of this BS through TV, Hollywood, media, politicians. You know, people have their own ulterior motives, tyrants. It's complete pretense, right? We're surrounded by liars who are trying to transfer funds and control the masses and whatever the hell's going on. It's not an inspiring culture. And this is precisely why, if you want to live an extraordinary life, if you want to tap into the essence of who you are as a limitless being, a timeless, boundless person, and have that manifest in your physical life, then you need to seek out some sort of community that helps inspire that. Again, it's not me selling anything. It doesn't have to be me. There's other good people out there who inspire people, but find yourself a community where you feel a sense of belonging, you feel safe, you feel seen, you feel heard, and you feel supported in whatever it is you're committed to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this reminds me of, like, I consider myself super disciplined when it comes to many things in my life, like my fitness and my health and my marriage. And distinction that has helped me around the language is, instead of thinking it as like something I have to do, it's like being a disciple of my fitness. And a disciple, it's like reverence and devotional, right? There is like incredible power in being a disciple. And so this makes me want to continue to extend that to being a disciple of an extraordinary life.
Yeah. Amen.
Awesome, Peter. Thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. This is truly one of a dream come true. So
well,
thank you.
I got it. That means a lot to me. And I really, with all love and compassion, hoped Laurie's situation resolves itself, not because it resolves itself, but because you see how powerful you are and she is to deal with whatever the circumstances are, so that she can get back to being at peace and having her home and not being in worry. But I really do see it as an opportunity for you both to up level and just know that you are powerful and you can deal with it.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks for tuning in. And remember, literally everything can be used as an opportunity to learn, to heal, to grow, and to transform. So whatever is going on in your life, choose to consciously and proactively harness that energy and use it to alchemize your life to the next level. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or on your favorite social media, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. As always, you can find me at Justin David Carl on Instagram and all the socials, as well as at alchemizelife.com on the web. Until the next time, sending you lots of energy and plenty of dragon magic.